this panel is about working inside, outside. And one of the big things that PDA talks a lot about is this notion of an inside-outside strategy. The idea that for progressives, it's different than for the right. And I don't mean the right like the Tea Party, which I actually have respect. They actually have rallies now and again. But an awful lot of the corporate right, the idea of working outside is unimaginable to them. It's a comic notion. Why would they work outside when they are invited into the corridors of power and allowed to direct things? Why would you possibly hold a rally or do some event when you can actually write the legislation and then give people a check and get it passed? Right? So there is a unique reality to a right-left split in politics. And part of that reality is that people on the left cannot rely on Congress to do it on their own. What you hope for is to have a couple members of Congress who will stand on your side. And then what they hope for, those who are your allies, is that you will actually go out and build movements that will allow them to turn to their colleagues and say, look, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to sell out and compromise just like you, but I can't because there's all these people banging on the door. And so progressives in Congress need movements that make it possible for them to force the Democratic Party and then the whole of Congress to do this. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And we have a tremendous panel. You know them all, so I won't go quickly through long introductions, but I will tell you that if you are anywhere in America and you are, feeling, you're driving through, someplace in Missouri, maybe Kansas, I don't know, you're feeling just slight lack of intellectual depth. If you've got serious radio or if you've got the capacity to do it, you got a good enough radio in your car, you just tune in Thom Hartmann and you hear some of the smartest progressive talk radio and also on TV. Just a tremendous ally for this movement, great books. Next to him, Lori Wallach. Lori Wallach, I think everybody in the room knows her, but if you don't, you should understand this. The reason that trade policy, how we trade with other countries, how we set up international organizations that take away our environmental, our labor, our human rights, and how we can fight against it. The reason that is a real issue that people get at a fundamental level in Congress and outside Congress is because of Lori Wallach. Lori Wallach with Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. And it's not, she will tell you 100 other people helped her, 1,000 other people are part of it, and she's absolutely right about that. But the fact of the matter is, we're now, and it's going to make you feel old, Lori, we're coming on 20 years of Lori Wallach taking issues that once upon a time nobody else tried to dig into and making them central issues of our time. NAFTA, the GATT, WTO, Central American trade agreements, and now her incredible campaign for transparency in trade policy. Please welcome Lori Wallach. You met him before. He was sitting among you taking notes. He is one of you, now one of them. Congressman Mark Pocan. Yes, one of you, now one of them. You know that I've known Congressman Mark Pocan for so long that we used to have a movie club where we went on Sunday night, we would go to whatever movie was showing. We saw the worst movies ever. And because he had that kind of time. He was that sort of relevant, he was as irrelevant as myself. Now he is a member of Congress, and he comes to Congress as one of you. He is, as a state legislator, the person who introduced the move to amend, overturn Citizens United legislation in his own state legislature. He is the member of his own legislature who introduced the Buy America legislation to make sure that money from the state goes to local companies. And most importantly, when Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin decided to take away labor rights, it was Mark Pocan who printed up the orange T-shirts, much like the pink T-shirts of Code Pink, who printed up the orange T-shirts that every member of the state assembly wore, and who really, at a level that you cannot begin to imagine, organized the inside opposition that was in solidarity with the struggle against Governor Scott Walker's policies in Wisconsin. I will tell you one quick story. I was in Mark's office. I was finishing the Nation cover story on the Wisconsin struggle. So I'm sitting in Mark's office editing it on a computer, not using state property. And I mean, the Capitol was occupied. There were 8,000 people in the Capitol. I think Medea Benjamin was there, leading a chant. I mean, the intensity of the energy and all this great stuff. The governor was going to sneak into the Capitol and do his State of the State address and announce his proposals for all sorts of horrendous things. And he was about to drive up in a limousine. And I'm in Mark's office and I'm talking. And Mark looks at his watch and he goes, "Oh, what time is it? Oh, hold it just a second." And Mark runs out of the office, and then with two of his aides comes walking in the office with a giant rolled up banner, like very heavy, like 8 feet long, and they come walking across the office. And I'm like, what are they doing now? And they push open the window on this winter day, and they're laying at the window, and right as Walker's limousine pulls up, they unfurl an 8-foot by 10-foot banner that says, "Scott Walker, your pink slip is coming." Inside-outside politics. And sitting next to Mark Pocan, and boy, are they going to have fun. Congressman Raul Grijalva. He is co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He is a congressman from a swing district where they actually have a strong Tea Party, where he actually can face tough elections, who never, ever fails to take the right stand. And there's a lot of things you can say about Raul Grijalva, issues of peace and economic justice. But I want to emphasize that when Arizona had its knockdown, drag-out struggle about immigrant rights, and really its struggle about racism, its struggle about how we treat people who may look a little different than those who write the checks. When we had, look at that, the Progressive Democrats of America band decided to unfurl in honor of Raul Grijalva. When that struggle played out, the easiest thing for Raul Grijalva to do would have been to put out a press release and say, "Well, I've got some objections to the law." He could have kept himself on the right side. No, he went down into his district. He had public meetings. He had rallies. He condemned the law, and he took all of the fire onto himself. He faced death threats. He faced attacks on his office because in an American state, he was willing to stand up to economic and political power that would beat on immigrants and those who were not wealthy enough to protect himself. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to meet an inside-outside congressman who is willing to take on the toughest fights. It is Raul Grijalva. Please welcome him.